strategy in a system full of gaps, constraints, and institutional voids? Well, especially in an emerging economy where the rules aren't just changing, quite frankly, half the time rules don't even exist. Yet somehow that's exactly where the most remarkable strategies take birth. Think of this episode as a masterclass in institutional theory. Strategy in a world where institutions are weak, markets are informal, and innovation is forced to run ahead of the system. This time, we sat down with Monis Rahman, founder of Rozee.pk, Finja, and Dukan, a strategic thinker who understood one truth long before the rest of us did. When institutions aren't ready, strategy doesn't wait. It adapts, innovates, and forces momentum. Today's conversation isn't about business models, it's about transforming how strategy works in a country where millions of blue-collar workers operate outside the formal economy, invisible, undocumented, and often unheard. And here's where this story becomes extraordinary. Monis Rahman is building an AI that speaks the language of the blue-collar worker, quite literally. He calls it Rozee GPT, an AI that works on WhatsApp, in Urdu, that can talk to a security guard, a welder, a tailor, understands their skills, create their resume, and connects them to real paying job for the very first time. And that brings us to the big strategy question that we'll try to answer in this video. First, how do you reinvent a company when its business model begins to age? Second, how do you balance the old and new AI-driven future without losing the core? Third, how do you ensure ethics and transparency when algorithms begins to shape real human lives? And on top of everything else, what does strategic leadership look like in a country full of institutional voids? And now, this is not a strategy in a textbook. This is strategy in real world, messy, adaptive, and alive. Stay with me till the end because Monis shared a roadmap for young professionals on how to get hired in this new world of AI-driven jobs, a message worth every second of your time. My name is Dr. Mohsin Kazmi, and this is Strategy Playbook, made in Pakistan. Let's dive in.
Let's just dive into it. Personally speaking, you need no introduction. Almost everybody in Pakistan and abroad knows how great things you are doing. I mean, it's starting from Rozee.pk all the way to Finja and Dukan. Nothing is hidden. So I want to still, for those who would watch this later on, would want to start with the foundations on, these are different ventures, right? Rozee in employment, Finja in fintech, Dukan in commerce. How do they go together with each other? What's the underlying logic here?
Okay, a few things to unpack. I'm going to start high level and I'm going to go down low level. High level is I have been involved in the Pakistani startup ecosystem since around 2003, launched Rozee 2007, and was a internet entrepreneur in the US during the beginning of the .com days. So I've seen Hotmail come and be created from nothing and become huge. The founder was a friend in the Valley. I've seen LinkedIn. Reid Hoffman was also a friend. He invested in Rozee when I came back to Pakistan. I saw how he started. So I've seen the whole journey and trajectory of the online ecosystem. When I came back to Pakistan, it was very clear that our labor markets were incredibly inefficient. I needed to, I had launched a social media site back then by the name of Naseeb.com, which became wildly successful. It was a social networking site, a lot like Facebook for the Muslim diaspora after 9/11, because there was a lot of feeling of alienation, whatever. It grew very well. It grew very quickly. Reid Hoffman was an investor. He's one of the OGs in the social media space. And but after I got here and I needed to hire, I had to hire in newspapers. When I'd ask for salaries of software engineers, it depends where he's working. If he's working here, it's being paid 3 lakhs. If he's working here, he's being paid 20,000 because the job market was very inefficient. So we needed to hire, and I didn't want to spend at that time 8 lakhs. In today's terms, 8 lakhs is probably 20 lakhs on a quarter-page ad in Dawn to advertise as a poor startup founder starting in my house. We actually started in my house with 4 people. So I said, let's just make a quick and dirty job site because it's not hard to do. So my first programmer, who's still with us now, he's our CTO. I said, Khalid, let's make a quick job board. Just let people post jobs, upload their CVs and resumes. And 2 weeks, we got it up. And we said, what do we name it? We said, name it Rozee, because it was actually named as a joke, because I had a friend in college who would always say, Rozee ka sawal hai. And it was a big sort of hilarious thing he would say. So let's call it Rozee. That seems to be a good name. So it was basically because there's a massive inefficiency in this job market where you have about 60 million people who are looking for jobs, and you have these businesses who can't grow because they can't find the right skill set because we're dominated by lower skilled people. So it's hard to find the needle in the haystack and all of this stuff. So I was very passionate about helping people get into jobs at scale. And Rozee has now helped over 1 million people get into jobs. And we think we can do a lot more now with AI, as I'll explain. But even 1 million people, it's a very gratifying feeling. Wherever I go, I'll meet somebody who said, oh, I found my first job on Rozee. I got my job through Rozee. And it's really an inflection point, because when somebody gets a job, they start to feed a family of 6 to 10 people on the back of that. It's like a trickle-down effect, you know. So very, very important to get efficiencies inside the labor market, to get wages to be, you know, fair wages. Means that they have sort of market force equilibrium through transparency of knowledge. So that's where that whole thing came from. It's like, okay, let's uplift people with knowledge and jobs and prosperity. And then the goal was to go down the pyramid. We have 20 million white collar people. Then let's get to 40 million blue collar people, which we weren't able to do until now, which is where AI comes in. I'll tell you what we're doing, which is incredibly exciting because you can see the impact that's being created through this. So while this was on one side, then the other side was during COVID, we were facing a lot of issues because our offices were closed, our clients' offices were closed, nobody was hiring, the checks stopped arriving, I still had to make salary, payroll, new clients weren't onboarding, there was uncertainty in the job market, everybody was afraid that they were about to go bankrupt. So while we were idle and in quarantine at home, I would go around the markets and I would see shops close, and I would talk to shopkeepers. You know, they close the shutter, but they would have half open so you can sneak in. And during those conversations, it emerged that they were in a lot of trouble. And they're like, well, you know, Food Panda and these places that take online orders, they're still surviving in lockdown, but we don't know how to do it. I was like, well, it's lockdown, I can do something. So we quickly created Dukan, which was basically a digital way and a quick app to let anybody start to sell, collect orders, do, you know, their deliveries. And while we were doing this, really started to go into the gullies and the little alleys where your cars don't even go. You have to go on a motorbike and look at this sort of SME economic heartbeat, which is really vibrant. In the poorest neighborhoods, you'll find these shops that are just humming with people, with poor people buying things like toffees and airtime and, you know, tea and milk. So there's clearly a very large economy that was humming there. And, you know, when you look at the economic numbers, 40% of our GDP comes from these SMEs, and 80% of our non-agriculture workforce lies within these SMEs. And these SMEs do not grow. They basically have a certain amount of cash as investment. They buy stock, they sell that stock, they make 5%, 8% on top of it. Of that 5%, 8%, they might take 1% to 2% in their pocket so they can pay their bills. The rest goes back into stock. And the cycle goes on, and they never grow because they don't have adequate cash flow, and they can't get credit because banks want all this documentation and they take 6 months, and obviously SMEs don't have it. So I became very passionate about figuring out how to bring these SMEs, which were being excluded from this new magical era of like a digital age where we have apps and e-commerce and payments that have really uplifted large populations out of poverty, namely China, almost 1 billion were lifted out of poverty on the back of this sort of amazing work that happened on the back of smartphones and QR codes and payments and e-commerce. It's just amazing. So obviously that was a magic wand that we'd seen before. So on one side is this labor market from white collar all the way down to blue. And I'm more in love with the blue collar market than the white collar market. Unfortunately, the money right now is in the white collar market. We're still trying to crack the blue collar market. And on the other side, you have all of these SMEs, a very, very large population of 5 million SMEs that just are not growing because they don't have access to basic things like credit. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the US market or a mature market, everybody has access to credit. Everybody, almost 100% of SMEs have access to credit, and that's why they grow. So our capital markets are very inefficient. So it seemed like these were the two most impactful inflection points that I could put my fingers on in Pakistan and actually dare to dream about making a difference. I felt maybe I can really move the needle here. And well, with Rozee, we've clearly seen that happen. And I think it's going to accelerate now. And with Dukan, we've made so much progress with working with the largest banks and the telcos and trying to onboard small retail merchants, connecting them with their distributors, building in mobile wallets, credit scoring them, allowing them to take loans inside their apps to buy more stock. So this is how they're all interconnected. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, you see this large SME market that I'm talking about, which employs this large blue-collar market, which I already told you I'm in love with, and I'm going to connect them again. So these informal jobs that are never advertised, these are hidden jobs in the economy. We have a very good shot at uncovering those hidden jobs, documenting them so we can actually find people who match. And on the other side, by having that inventory of jobs, there's this hidden workforce that we never see that connects to jobs very informally through proximity or like a relative. And we have the ability to connect them. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the sort of permutations between these two data sets and these two pieces of the market, you can just imagine how much impact can be made if we can do that efficiently. So that's the connection.
Amazing. That makes a lot of sense. Now, within all this connection, all the CEOs that I've been talking to, one indicator always pops up. That is the macroeconomic challenge. Now, of course, for you and your business, the challenges might be different. Everybody keep complaining about inflation, the lending rates at the bank. Technology have evolved, since 2003, but the infrastructure is still struggling. How do you decode the technology infrastructure? How has it evolved? Do you think the institution has been moving at the same pace as you're moving, or is it holding you back?
Look, so banks are very slow to innovate everywhere in the world. They only innovate when there's some sort of extreme pressure to do so. Mm-hmm. So they were very late with their mobile apps. Some banks are just launching mobile apps with, basic rudimentary, here's your account balance and you can make a transfer, right? So if we want to help SMEs, it's very clear that the banks are not interested. They're very small loan amounts. They're very hard to aggregate. They're super hard to KYC and verify if they're real. The amounts of money involved are so small, it doesn't make sense to put energy on them when they're getting fantastic returns from just giving money to the government in their sort of the treasury bills, the bonds. Mm-hmm. So it's clear that banks aren't moving fast enough, but banks are a very important piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. I worked very closely with State Bank. I had a startup called Finja, mm-hmm. which got the first pilot license approval for the EMI license, which is a sort of an introductory license for fintech that lets mm-hmm. a fintech open a mobile wallet and take the deposits directly from the customers. They get to own the customers. Mm-hmm. So we were the first ones to do that. We worked with State Bank on the regulations. I worked again with State Bank on the EMI 2.0 regulations. So it was clear that we could do some things as a startup which are exponentially faster than banks, which move really slowly. Mm-hmm. And along with that, from a lending side, we became the first ones to ever figure out, well, the EMI license doesn't allow us to lend. So how do we lend? Then we went to SECP, not State Bank, and we said, let's get an NBFC license. Mm-hmm. So we got the non-banking financial corporation license, which allows a non-banking entity to lend. We merged these two, and we found out we could do something. Well, we got stuck because you couldn't use your deposits, but learned a lot through that process, so became very aware. And then now, if you look, there are so many more NBFCs that have entered. A lot of Chinese NBFCs have entered. You have this Optasia, you have some, all over the world who understand lending, who are going to large platforms and say, look, let me do it for you. I'll take on the risk, open up your data, I'll credit score, I'll arrange the money, or if you want to put the money, that's fine, but I'll take the risk. And all of a sudden, we had these very competent algorithmic sort of firms who are able to give tremendous amounts of fantastic, profitable loans, as you're seeing with the nano loans of EasyPaisa and JazzCash. Now, because these institutional licenses are available and there's a precedent and the regulators have seen this, and now private enterprises are operating, now we can move much, much faster. We don't even have to work for the bank, work with the banks. Now, a player like mine on Rozee, we're credit scoring our professionals, but we're working with an NBFC, not a bank. And we're doing the credit scoring, and they're doing their own, and now they're giving loans. There's no bank involved. So this is where the disruption happens. And then the banks come in later on the back of that. Once these private companies say, hey, I've done 1 million rolls and my NPLs or my default rate is only 3%, and I'm making, 58% annually, like, hey, I want a piece of that. Here's my money. Here's like $1 million, go and invest it. So that's when the banks come in, when you de-risk it. So a lot of stuff is happening right now. It's a very exciting time because the data footprints are now everywhere with ROS QR codes and, retail transactions happening through QR and e-commerce. And so we have a lot more footprints, which means it's a lot easier to credit score both businesses and consumers. My whole purpose has been building those platforms which capture the most relevant footprints to allow me to credit score and give credit and allow businesses and individuals to grow. So that's what's happening on the Rozee side. This is what's happening on the Dukan side. It comes down to data, credit scoring, and growing them through access to capital.
Yeah, makes all the sense. Within this industry, as you said, being a big fan of the blue collar and SMEs being at the heart of it, there's a lot that we can do. I mean, of course, our institutions are not doing enough. How do you decide yes to this and no to that? Of course, as you said yourself, I mean, whatever helps you improve the credit scoring mechanism, you welcome it. But in terms of doing businesses, there must be a lot of ideas. And there's only how do you say no?
Well, it's like a disease. So you have to cure yourself and teach yourself to say no, because you realize that there's so much impact you can make in so many different areas with so small an effort, because there's so much inefficiency. And I'm a very passionate guy. I get excited about things. So, there's a feeling, well, I can do it. It won't take a lot of time. It'll make a big difference. I really want to. It's exciting. But once you start doing that, you figure out that, hey, it's eating up a lot of bandwidth. It's eating up money. I need to generate profits. I need to grow. And I think, so that's when the reality check comes in, that you always have passion projects that take a back seat to the primary projects that are generating revenue in the near term. And then you've got these long-term ideas. Blue collar for me is a long-term prospect, but I have to do a lot of work on it now. And I can see light at the end of the tunnel. I can see the impact that it will make. So I try to squeeze in all the time I can to get that platform off the ground. I think we're very close now.
That's great. I mean, now switching towards something. I mean, people have always been at the core of your heart. I mean, you have a really strong strategy when it comes to people. You are connected with people. How does GPT come in? As you said last time when you had a quick conversation at the World Bank, you were invited to talk about the possible ethical concerns and the biases. I mean, as an HR person, we always hear about, human making mistakes, switching things to AI, and then AI does the matchmaking. Is it going to solve our problems, or is it going to make more problems? How do you see it?
There's no doubt that AI will make individuals 10x, 100x more productive. That's already been put out. in the early days. It's been 4 or 5 short years since we discovered this magic wand, this genie in a bottle. And AI is just another, as far as I'm concerned, just another channel to connect to individuals in a very convenient way. You know, when we started off, it was newspapers. That was a channel. You print the newspapers every early morning, you go and hand them out. And now I'm getting your job ad in a newspaper. It's a distribution channel. Then we had internet and DSL connections and squeaky phone modems. And we had websites, and you'd go to the website and click and wait for things to spin. And that became a very interesting channel as internet speeds increased. It was like, man, you got to put this on the internet. What are you doing? You don't print things anymore. And that became a magic wand again. And then smartphones came out, Android came out, iPhone came out, this new user interfaces came out. Like, what are you doing on a web browser? Are you crazy? Everybody has a smartphone. It's used a lot more. It's more convenient. Conversion rates are higher. If you don't have an app, you're an idiot. We all built apps. Another magic wand. So you've had many, many magic wands that have tremendously increased access to information, access to goods, access to financial services, and humanity has grown as a consequence. Now, there's this, Aesop's fable about the stork, having a guest over for dinner, and the plate was flat and the stork was unable to eat the food, so the stork invited the rabbit over and put this very long flask and put food at the bottom, and the rabbit wasn't able to eat it. So it's basically, we have 40 million blue-collar workers, and we basically put food at the bottom of a long flask, and then have the beak to go inside. So you are excluding them because you don't have a channel to communicate with them. Now we do, because everybody is using WhatsApp. Everybody has a mobile smartphone now. 68% of your adult population in Pakistan has an internet-connected smartphone. That's a big deal. And whoever has an internet-connected smartphone has WhatsApp running on it. And they're all using WhatsApp. Uneducated people are using WhatsApp. You'll talk to your sort of welder or your dhobi or the guy in the market. You're leaving voice notes. You're talking to Uber real time, that are able to take what he's saying, understand what he's saying, ask follow-up questions, answer him real time, give him information in the way he wants, take his information, structurally put it back into our sort of database, and our algorithms run on it, and then we can generate this last mile sort of channel through AI and natural AI. And we're doing a study right now, research with professors at Harvard, on making our agentic AI more human with long-term memory and empathy. So the professors at Harvard who are working with us to create interventions to really make this a trusted experience where you're working in native language, real time, in voice, in typing, or however you want, able to create a resume. If you're like, say you're a chowkidar, our AI chatbot can make you a resume that looks like it's made by a Harvard MBA.
Yeah.
Asking you questions. It'll do it in English. It'll do it in Urdu. And once it gets that structured data, it is now advertising on our site. We have that CV created, which is very accurate now for that individual. And employers can also leave jobs and voice notes. Say, hey, I want to clerk for my shop, and ask it more questions, or just do like a what's up, I want to hire this person. And now the matching algorithm is going and saying, guess what, Altaf, we've got a great job for you as a driver, in your area, because we know your geocode. This could never happen before. Never. We can do it now. So all of a sudden, we have unlocked the bottom of the pyramid, 40 million people.
Excellent.
It's possible today. We're doing it today. So why hasn't it been done? I can't do it fast enough because I know how to do it. I've done pieces of it, and I know it's going to make a massive impact.
It would, but I mean, I'm a bit skeptical. I mean, being an HR background guy, I'm looking at from legal perspective. So when my recruiter would hire somebody, I would ask them the reasons behind hiring them. Or when they would exclude somebody, they could explain it to me. Would your AI, Rozee.pk, be able to explain why somebody was included and why somebody was not included for the job?
Yeah, absolutely. I should show you our Rozee.pk.
I did give it a try before coming.
Oh, okay. So have you seen any applicants on there?
I just put my CV and try to create it, and then
you did from a job seeker.
Yeah.
Okay, great, excellent. But if you did it as an employer on the employer side and posted a job, your job would get posted, and your job description would again look like it's made by, you know, a McKinsey HR expert.
Okay.
It's very, yeah, it's a great sort of JD. A lot of research has gone into it. And then what would happen is our agent, who's called Rosina, scours through our database to find matches against that job, contacts them through WhatsApp conversations, gets them to apply. And when they apply, you'll see 200 applicants. You might see 8 of them with green badges. You might see 20 with blue badges, and you might see the rest with yellow badges. Green badge means you're going to love it. It's a good CV. I promise you're going to like it. You're like, okay, I clicked it. Yeah, it looks good, but why do I like it? You click, it'll give you a whole scored breakdown of why it thinks it's good, why it thinks it's bad, what the particular strengths are, what the particular weaknesses are. And it is magical. It's magical. And we've never been proven wrong. We have over 60 corporate clients. We've processed hundreds and thousands of CVs. Not one HR manager has come to us and says, your assessment was wrong. Because we explain why in a lot of detail. Now, this wasn't easy to do. This isn't natural to LLM. There's a lot of work that goes into doing this consistently and doing it the right way. Now, let me talk about biases. You know, I had this whole conversation at World Bank because there is this sort of, what should I call it? A ghost, the ghost of sort of discrimination and bias, because it's the most horrific thing we can imagine, that the computer now, because of its training, is biased against women or biased against minorities or biased against Black people or whatever. So like, well, how do we prevent that? And I gave a few examples to people at the World Bank. First of all, our human beings, our recruiters are more biased than the machine. I guarantee it. They see a picture on the resume, they'll form an opinion. They see a last name on the resume, they'll form an opinion. They see a female, they'll form a certain opinion. So when you ask your HR manager why he chose those 3 people, he is going to give you very biased feedback, which you're likely to accept because he's going to rationalize why he feels that way. Now, supposing there's a universe, a parallel one, far, far away, in which the same thing happens, but it was a different HR manager. He would give you 3 CVs too, but I almost guarantee you he wouldn't give you the exact same 3 CVs. If he did, and if you repeat this experiment 100 times and you get the same 3 CVs back every single time, you should buy a lottery ticket. It ain't going to happen. So there's inconsistency in human beings. You have good days, you have bad days. You like people who do, MBAs from international schools. They're worth more to you than a person from LUMS or IBA, for example. That's your own bias. Lots of bias. Now, with AI, with correct guardrails and prompting, you can make it do the right thing every single time.
Totally agree.
And you don't tell AI it's a male or female. You don't give AI a race. You don't give AI the picture. You give it the job title, all the experiences, what they did, the skills, it infers skills. It creates this talent cloud out of your resume story, your CV story, and it matches it without knowing any nuances about you. And it does it consistently every single time. Now, is there a training bias where, OpenAI has trained its model on more literature that say, people who have a hobby of crochet tend to be, absent-minded and are female and therefore whatever? It's highly unlikely that anything like that's going to happen. And if you look at it on an absolute scale, the relative probabilities of bias of humans are so big and computers are so small, and yet you're using those human beings who have this very coarse granularity, are very more likely to be biased, to judge a system that's much less biased and make an opinion on it. Doesn't make sense.
But as a researcher, and I think you would agree with it, right now, the kind of agentic AI we have, one of the limitations is places where it don't know it doesn't know how to say, I don't know. So it will come up with something. My student will come up citing research papers which never existed. And of course, this sort of stuff could come with Rozee GPT. How do you control for that?
Yeah, so you have to control for that. Exactly right. So look, this is called a hallucination.
Yeah.
And there's a scientific reason why hallucination happens. There's just a paper that was launched, I think, by some Stanford researchers. No, I'm sorry. This was by an OpenAI. I was just reading about the science behind the hallucinations. There's a mathematical reason for it, by the way. Now, hallucinations have decreased exponentially since GPT 3.5 was launched. So we used to do all of this on 3.5, and I'm glad we did, because it used to hallucinate like crazy. I mean, it was on like crack, right? So you never knew when it was saying the right thing or the wrong thing. It was all over the place. So we had to now account for hallucination in the way we prompted, in the things we asked, in the things we didn't ask, in the checks we did on top of it. And we don't get it to generate like free-form, open-ended stuff. It's very well contained in a box. It's super quantified. And then we have checks on it. So an LLM checks an LLM, right? I mean, so we have gotten rid of this hallucination stuff. Also, GPT-5 now is just amazing. The amount of hallucinations, they are really going very, 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 very low down. And if you don't put yourself in a position where you're exposed to a hallucination, then even if there's a small probability of hallucination, it's not going to happen. So it's really how you construct your algorithm and the checks and balance on it, and make it do things that are very deterministic, as opposed to, open-ended, find me research papers as an example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this makes all the sense. You use a lot in credit scoring and stuff, maybe in predicting how to get more business. Do you also use AI in strategy formulation? Does AI help you in making decisions about the strategy? How much do you use AI, and how much is it human in terms of deciding the future for your businesses?
I cannot live without GPT-5 now. I have it on my phone, and I'm always talking to it. It's become my best friend. And the reason is that, business strategy is driven by access to relevant information, like highly relevant information at the right time, which is very tough to come by, right? You have to get a bunch of people on, go research all the top talent CRM companies in AI and tell me what they're doing and what their price points are and where's the market, Now you can actually formulate a question saying, here's what I'm worried about, and here's what I want to know, and here's how I think you should do it. Now go out and do it. Go and it'll think for 2 minutes and come back with this incredible analysis that you just spin through. You're driving, right? You're asking questions while you're driving. You're getting this sort of McKinsey analysis on information. It's scouring over the web, which no human being can absorb that information that quickly and, merge it and back it up with all the knowledge of the world, because it's learned everything on the internet. So you're able to make decisions very, very quickly. And I'm able to understand very sophisticated things in other areas of the world, or even in here, that I don't have access to, but now I can very simply do it. So AI is very, very critical. But look, business strategy principles pretty much remain the same. It's really, if you should do it or not, what you should do, because the playbook is pretty much the same. The blocks have changed, or shapes have changed, but it is really how to execute that sort of playbook. And, for example, in my business, it's a marketplace. The more job seekers that come and upload their resumes or CVs, the more employers are going to come and put jobs, because they're going to get more applicants. And the more applicants you get, the more employers are going to post jobs. So it's a flywheel, right? And it grows like a snowball. So for my business, I need that flywheel to spin. I need more job seekers, I need more jobs, and I need more matches, because if I get job seekers and jobs and I'm not doing matches, the wheel never spins. Now through AI, I have the ability to do incredibly accurate matches infinitely more accurate than my previous algorithms that I built over 8 years doing SQL queries and whatnot. We are infinitely better at assessing whether it's a good match. So I only tell the people who are a good match about a job. They're happy because it's a good match. The employer's happy because I'm inviting the right people. I've made the connection. And now I have these agentic tools that allow me to personally reach out to millions of job seekers in a personalized Q&A fashion, instructive, empathetic fashion, which means that my conversion increases. So one of these things agentic bots are doing, it is increasing conversion rates of whatever you're doing. The conversion rate of a website, going, filling out a form and doing your end result, you take that 3% conversion rate, you do the same thing through a conversational AI bot, which is speaking to you, conversion rate's 22%. So, yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I say this all the time in my MBA class. We wish life was a bed of roses, but in business, every now and then we have a challenge to tackle. What are some of the major challenges that you are tackling right now, or you have your sleeves rolled up? What is something that is bothering you these days?
What's bothering me is that I can't get this stuff out fast enough because there's such an urgent need and opportunity, and we're cranking away and we're building, and AI is changing every day, every week. The technologies, the architectures, the research papers, the models, the tools, the economics. So you're building as quickly as you can, and then you're finding out, oh, there's something new. I could be doing this, or I shouldn't be doing this. There's a FOMO, and there's a real overload of information and knowledge, and staying up to speed is exhausting. And at the same time, developing and building and cranking these things out, it takes time, and trying to test them. So I think there's a tremendous amount of excitement at Rozee. We see this as a massive inflection point for what we're doing. We've been validated, I think, globally. These Harvard researchers have been praising us. They've seen everything in terms of agentic AI and empathy, and they've been very excited to work with us in Pakistan through like a Pakistani company. We're state of the art. This is the latest area of sort of AI research, memory and empathy. I've been invited to speak at international conferences on AI and recruitment, and we see how far ahead we are of the rest of the world. So one of the other things is you can build this stuff sitting in Pakistan if you have the right brains and right creative energy behind it.
Totally agree.
So, it's exciting because there's opportunity. And at the same time, it's very stressful because, need to encash or execute on that opportunity and actually see the promise play out.
Yeah, I mean, this would be, let's say, a golden question. You are sitting on top of a great amount of data. If I were to ask you some recommendation for my MBA students, what kind of skills, do you think they need to develop 5 years down the road? Of course, there are these traditional, we do recommend them, come on, you need to get on top of AI. But beyond learning AI, what would be the top 3 skills that you recommend Pakistani students to be an expert in next couple of years?
Every student must master as many AI tools, as many models. It's not just, oh, do you use ChatGPT? Yeah, I use ChatGPT. There's so many new startups like Recruit AI and all these different verticals, from video production to graphic design to business modeling to financial analysis to whatever. And your business graduates have an advantage. They're young, they're hungry, they're trained to learn. They'll stay up late, read things and study them. They'll go through the pain. Working professionals of 10, 15 years lose that ability or that desire or that stamina. Your kids are also in tune with the world more as it is today, as opposed to how it was 40 years ago. So they absorb this stuff quicker. So, they should be curating 10, 20 AI tools and using them in all these facets of what they're doing. So first of that, the professional that's proficient at using AI is going to survive in tomorrow's workforce. The one that says, oh, I don't use AI, I do it manually, will not survive, because the one who does may not be as smart, but is 10 times more productive than the one who isn't. So one, and you already said, aside from using AI, I'm going to go back and say, use AI. The second thing is that no matter what your degree is in, you're an MBA, you're medical school, law school, I don't care what you're doing, you must learn programming today. And you can learn Python programming really easily using Claude and Anthropic and ChatGPT, which teaches you, which writes code for you. Learn to use AI tools like Claude and ChatGPT to generate code. Learn how to run that code. Run simple programs. Very easy to do for a non-technical person. You don't need a CS degree. But the moment you get this sort of ability to use AI, to do algorithmic stuff, to do little programs, and the kind of difference you can make in whatever career or field you're in, whether it's legal or medical or marketing or what SEO, you'll see a massive, massive edge. I think the world is going to have very little tolerance for individuals whose work revolves largely on recalling and assimilating a large corpus of knowledge and expressing it in English. I think those jobs, which were very specialized, years of learning, reading, memorizing legal statutes, legal rulings, whatever it was, assimilating that information and learning to apply it to something and write a beautiful sort of a case on it or a beautiful, agreement on it, the machine's going to do it better than you. It already is. So clearly that's not the skill we want. We don't want people who are studying large corpus of knowledge and now are very knowledgeable on whatever, because the computer is going to do it better and faster, and you're loading your brain with rote information that used to be very useful, but is ridiculous to put in your brain right now because you can get it out faster and better. So then what is that skill? That skill is being able to take lots of diverse information, throw it together, use AI, make sense of it, the pilot to curate. Like my example is, I can generate great AI videos. I don't know graphics design. I haven't studied it, but I can do things with it. But if I get an NCA graphics designer who's really good, has studied this, is passionate about this, knows all the tools, and I get him to do the same job in AI, he's going to do a much better job than me. Because he's a better pilot. He knows what to say, what not to do, use these, the colors in this family and do this and create a certain effect. So specialists will be needed to pilot these AI tools, but the ability to do that quickly, effectively, analytically, I think that's going to be important.
Yeah, makes all the sense. Just a couple of last questions. I know we're running short of time here. I noticed on your LinkedIn that you had a meeting last week with the CHROs of Pakistan, some of the largest banks and all these other big guns. Where is the future heading? I mean, especially in terms of HR practices, 5 years down the road, how do you think AI will shape the job market in the future? Where's the debate heading?
Look, when we met these CHRs in Pakistan, I'd just been in the US. We're doing very state-of-the-art stuff. They're very sophisticated in the way they think. And we were very lonely in Pakistan trying to explain it to HR managers who didn't get AI. Wow, what is this? How do I need it? What does it work? And then we had this meeting with these CHROs in Karachi, and I started explaining what I was doing with AI, and they got it. And they're saying, well, we're doing a little experiment here, and we've started to do this. So they totally were thinking along the same lines.
Nice.
Some had already embarked on a journey. They didn't quite know how to do it. They sort of did. Some did do some pretty impressive things along the lines that we were talking about. But I was so impressed that there are enterprises who are going into AI in a very sophisticated way. They're actually thinking about training their own models and buying NVIDIA chips at banks. Nice. Impressive, if you know how to do it. Every organization has realized that HR, recruiting, hiring, finding a job is probably one of the first use cases to get totally overhauled, revolutionized, disrupted through AI. So much so that OpenAI has announced that it's adding a jobs module built into ChatGPT because it realized that this is the one use case that they can really change in a great way. So what we're doing now is we're going into organizations and we're saying we've got this whole AI stack. This is an AI operating system for HR recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
Your existing applications, we interconnect with them. They sit on top of this. So you have an applicant tracking system. We integrate with it. We're building that operational layer, that OS layer that connects all your HR tools, and that is now able to get you 10x, 100x return on your investment of CVs. Mm-hmm. Every organization has a boatload of CVs stuck in somebody's hard drive on somebody's laptop, and they say, this is a great asset. We have 100,000 CVs. Nobody ever goes back to look at them because they're impossible to search, and they were on Aisha's laptop and Aisha left, mm-hmm. right? So what we do is that in the organization, part of our operating system is we build a neural talent engine. Mm-hmm. And what that does, it takes all the resumes and it just eats them up, just crunches them, creates embeddings out of them, organizes them, and throws them in this neural AI sort of database. And whenever you advertise a job or search, it looks first in your own data pool, and the agent goes out and talks to them and says, hey, you applied in the past. We've got another job. This looks like a good match. Why don't you come back? Their data gets refreshed. So this is a massive change in terms of how enterprises are able to recruit, because you do the work once and you reap the benefits over and over and over again, and you've got these agents scheduling interviews for you and making sure that the person comes for the interview. So, and then on the professional side, you know, I think you tried to create a CV out of it, and hopefully the CV was pretty decent. We're finding that the sort of CVs we're creating are better than most human beings are able to create, and the tool's improving. So the big question is, well, people are going to lie on their CVs and say things that aren't true, and I'm going to believe them. And yeah, but what it's also going to do is it's going to take those really lousy CVs you look at of some pretty intelligent people, but their English sucks and they don't know how to express themselves, and they write 3 or 4 lines, and you look at the resume like, ye kya bakwas hai? Mm-hmm. It's going to bring out the reality of those people through the communication power of AI. And you're not lying. You're actually bringing it out. Now, if somebody intentionally lies and says, I went to Harvard, I did my MBA, and I didn't, it doesn't matter if they use AI or they don't use AI, right? They could write that anyway. So AI is just going to make it smoother. And I think the problem with our HR managers is when we read a well-written CV and great English, grammatically correct, nice adjectives, we say, good candidate. Mm-hmm. That's not a good candidate. You have to dissect what's written in that English, and not that, yeah, this guy seems pretty educated, his English is good. This is how we used to think. Yeah. That's where the AI comes in. The AI takes out all these fluff words you put in and says, there's nothing here. You know, it's empty.
Great stuff, man. I mean, this is a gold mine. Thank you for taking the time out.